On climate change recommends that people move to a vegan diet. The United Nations report says that ever-increasing consumption of meat and dairy is causing soils to release carbon previously trapped underground, and this is heating the atmosphere. The IPCC met this week in Geneva, Switzerland, to finalize its report, which should help to guide governments meeting this year in Chile on ways to implement the 2015 Paris Agreement.
The report stops short of explicitly advocating going meat-free, but it calls for big changes to farming and eating habits. It says global meat consumption must fall to curb global warming, reduce growing strains on land and water, and improve food security, health and biodiversity.
A move to more balanced diets could help us adapt to and limit climate change. Some diets require more land and water and lead to higher emissions than others. For example, diets that are high in grains, nuts and vegetables have a lower carbon footprint than those that are high in meat, and they lead to better health outcomes. But of course, dietary choices are influenced by local production practices and cultural habits.
The report says plant-based foods and sustainable animal-sourced food could free up several million square kilometers of land by 2050. It says this could also cut 0.7 to 8.0 gigatons a year of carbon dioxide equivalent.
We humans affect more than 70% of ice-free land. A quarter of this land is degraded. The way we produce food and what we eat contributes to the loss of natural ecosystems and declining biodiversity. When land is degraded, it reduces the soil's ability to take up carbon, and this exacerbates climate change. In turn, climate change exacerbates land degradation in many different ways. Today, 500 million people live in areas that experience desertification. People living in already degraded or desertified areas are increasingly negatively affected by climate change.
The IPCC says land can be both a source and sink of carbon dioxide, the main greenhouse gas blamed for global warming, and better land management can help to tackle climate change. But it says this is not the only solution, and cutting emissions from all sectors is essential to quickly curtail global warming.
Climate change creates additional stresses on land, exacerbating existing risks to livelihoods, ecosystems, species, and biodiversity. Near-term actions to promote sustainable land management will help reduce the loss of biodiversity also through restoring natural ecosystems and their capacity to store carbon. Indigenous and local knowledge can contribute to overcoming the combined challenges of climate change, biodiversity loss, food security, desertification, and land degradation.
Since the pre-industrial era, land surface air temperature has risen by 1.53 degrees Celsius, twice as much as the global average temperature. This causes more heat waves, droughts and heavy rain, as well as land degradation and desertification.
If greenhouse gas emissions continue to increase or do not decrease, then many regions, especially in the tropics, would see novel, unprecedented climatic conditions in terms of mean temperature, but also seasonal cycles or extreme events. So the report stresses the importance of preparing for that and working on, for instance, crops that are resilient to extreme heat or drought. And in relationship with sustainable land management, the report looks at a number of options that are diverse and are context-specific, but they include, for instance, agroecology, conservation agriculture or forestry practices.
Last year, the IPCC's first special report warned that keeping the Earth's temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius rather than the 2 degrees Celsius target agreed under the Paris Accord required rapid change across society. The IPCC warns of more disruption to global food chains as extreme weather becomes more frequent due to climate change. It projects the median increase of 7.6% in cereal prices by 2050, meaning higher food prices and an increased risk of hunger.